Cool. Yeah, I think we can start this conversation with kind of like a general overview on how IBC is architectured before we get into some of the details. And maybe the question to either Adi or Charlie, whoever wants to take this first, is it would be cool if you can give a broad overview on how IBC is designed and what makes it this perfect interoperability standard for the blockchain economy in your eyes, maybe from like an architectural point of view.
I can take it, Adi, if you,
Yep.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
So I think obviously interoperability is a really hot topic nowadays. There are a lot of different ways that people talk about interoperability. People use the term cross-chain communication or bridging or interoperability. Right now, all of those things, like in the mainstream, more or less.
I didn't drive the Forerunner. We took the.
But I think that what we like to think about for IBC is that, contrary to something that I would call bridging protocol, which is just something that is like responsible, usually, you know, some sort of like validator controlled multisig or whatever, which is used to pass an asset back and forth between ecosystems. IBC is really architectured in a way that it allows for a lot more than just the passing of assets. And what I mean by that is that it really allows for cross-chain message passing on a native level, in the sense that we don't define in IBC what kind of data needs to be passed. It's not like, oh, you need to pass tokens over this bridge, or you need to pass NFTs. It's like IBC can allow you to pass anything from tokens and NFTs, but all the way to transactions, which are then executed on the other chain. And what we kind of like to call, you know, like bringing the application to the asset rather than having to have the user move the assets around to all these different ecosystems. So I think that's really like primarily the really fundamental architectural difference between IBC and other interoperability protocols, and kind of why I would argue that that makes it the best standard to push for cross-chain communication.
I would also add one more thing to that, Charlie. I think that the like client bridge architecture is just this sort of like huge step up in terms of security on top of the multi-sig model that is sort of commonly deployed in bridges. And the combination of the architecture as a general interoperability protocol, which is kind of fundamentally different than anything else out there. There's some other chains that are talking about doing this, that are working with the IBC standards, but no one else has really sort of pioneered this in the way we have. And then the other thing would be that like client model, which both are great spots to dig into.
Adi, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, not necessarily. I could complement it with some other insights, but Charlie and Jack gave a pretty... Yeah, one thing that I could say is when I first read the specification of IBC and when I was kind of onboarding myself into what it means and so on, for me, the way it all made sense, it was through the perspective of the fact that all chains have to, that there has to be multiple chains and they have to be sovereign. And it's not about exchanging, like Charlie said, a certain type of payload, but it's about, broadly speaking, communication. So it's like a Swiss knife that allows you to do many things, and it's rather complex when you compare it to a bridging protocol. It's not a bridging protocol, so that's what I would say. It is really at the heart of it that chains continue to be sovereign, and chains understand how they communicate with others, and they understand the risks of communicating with other chains. It's a lot more transparent and a lot more modular, and there's a lot of knobs that you can tweak with IBC as compared to a typical bridging protocol.
Yeah.